Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're looking at a very specific syllabus excerpt. It's a structural outline simply titled Module 11, Forms and Validation. Now, if you've ever built a modern web app, you already know that forms, well, they're kind of the ultimate developer's battleground, right? It's literally where your pristine, beautifully coded interface collides head-on with wildly unpredictable user input. And what we're going to see is how this sparse, 7-line syllabus outline actually acts as a complete, literal map for structuring your web applications. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the validation blueprint, break down the component divide, explore the form libraries, dive into validation with Yup and Zod, and finally, we'll piece together your development stack. All right, section 1, the validation blueprint. Let's get an overview of our source material. So, this is the exact text we're analyzing today, branching out like a simple file tree. From the root, forms and valuation, it branches straight down through components, React hook form, Formic, Yup, and Zod. It's incredibly minimalist, isn't it? But actually scratch that. It's more than just a list. This sparse text acts as a literal map for the modern web developer's toolkit. Notice how the whole thing flows. It starts with core architectural concepts, then it moves into specific management libraries, and it wraps up with precise validation tools. This single, tiny tree encapsulates the entire lifecycle of form data. Moving on to section 2, the component divide. Let's look at the foundational architecture. Right at the top of our syllabus, we're immediately hit with a really fundamental decision. How do we manage state at the foundation of our application? Because, every complex system has to start with a choice about how data actually flows at the absolute lowest level. Now, what's really interesting here is the clear dichotomy right at the very beginning of the syllabus. The tree just splits instantly into controlled components on one side and uncontrolled components on the other. Our source material isn't just tossing out terms, it's setting up a foundational divide. As a developer navigating this map, you literally have to pick a lane. Do you want to tightly control every single keystroke and piece of data in your component, or do you let the component manage itself and just grab the data when you need it? This split is the absolute bedrock that the rest of Module 11 is built on. Up next, Section 3, the form libraries. Welcome to the management tier. So if the first two items in our tree represent those foundational, bare metal component choices, the next section jumps into what we can call the management tier. The text transitions from structural concepts to specific third-party tools. And this totally implies a recognition in the curriculum that, hey, managing raw form components gets way too complex way too fast. You absolutely need something to delegate the heavy lifting to. And here's exactly how that management tier is presented. React hook form versus Formic. These are the two major form handler options pulled right from our list. Just like that component divide we just talked about, the syllabus gives us another clear fork in the road. Once you've figured out your base components, you got to choose your handler. So are you going to reach for React hook form, or will you implement Formic? The structure places them side by side, practically daring the developer to weigh their distinct approaches against each other. Moving to section 4, validation with Yup and Zod. Let's talk data integrity. Okay, so if the form libraries are the managers, these next tools, they're the bouncers. We've built the components, we've implemented the handlers, which naturally leads us to a crucial question. How do we validate all this data? It's one thing to collect user input, right? But it's an entirely different beast to ensure that input is safe, formatted correctly, and exactly what your database expects. This bridges us perfectly to the specific validation libraries listed right at the tail end of our syllabus. And framing the very end of our source text, we find Yup and Zod. This is the final structural decision in our forms and validation puzzle. The syllabus authors deliberately chose to highlight these two uniquely named tools as the absolute pinnacle of the module. You've got your components, your form status handled, and now you have to apply a schema to enforce the rules. So do you build your validation schemas using Yup, or do you define them using Zod? The anticipation builds throughout the entire syllabus just to reach this final critical checkpoint of data integrity. Finally, Section 5, your development stack. Let's build a customized tech stack. So the crucial point is that this syllabus isn't just a reading list, it is a full-on menu for building a customized technology stack. When we take those 6 specific terms from our source and organize them logically, they fall perfectly, and I mean perfectly, into 3 functional buckets. You've got architecture on the left, form handlers in the middle, and schema validation on the right. It shows exactly how the whole tree logically fits together. A developer studying this module will ultimately select one item from each column to build their specific solution. It's just a brilliant way to visually categorize that raw text into a completely actionable developer roadmap. Which brings us right back to the root of our tree, 11, forms and validation. And this brilliantly illustrates how a simple, unassuming piece of text actually represents a highly structured architectural landscape. I mean, what looked like a brief table of contents is actually a comprehensive guide to modern front-end data management. It walks you through the foundational concepts, introduces the industry standard libraries, and caps the whole thing off with the essential schema validators. We've officially decoded the map. We've seen the branching paths of the components, the heavy lifting of those form libraries, and the strict gateways of the validation tools. The syllabus lays out the choices perfectly, but the actual implementation, that is entirely up to you. So I'll leave you with this. Looking at the distinct paths outlined in this module, which combination of these tools will you choose to build your next project? Thanks so much for exploring this blueprint with me today, and keep building.